Hello, everyone. Welcome to the College Podcast. This is a space where we help A-level students make sense of life beyond school, from university admissions to career exploration. And today I'm your host, Miss Rukaiya Salman, Dean at Heuser College. And today we are taking a deep dive into one of the most prestigious universities in the world, the University of Cambridge, and what it takes to get there. So, whether you're seriously considering applying or just curious about what Cambridge looks for in students from our region, this episode is for you. I'm joined by a very special guest, Miss Sara Hales. I hope I'm pronouncing it correctly. The Senior Regional Manager for South Asia and MENA region at the University of Cambridge Admissions Office. Hi, Sara. How are you doing?
Hi, Rukaiya. Very well, thank you. Thank you for inviting me along today.
It was a pleasure meeting you at the CIS event in Qatar, and I'm glad we were able to do this after the event. So, Ms. Sara has a presentation ready for us. So, we are going to start with her presentation, and then it will be followed by a Q&A session. So, Ms. Sara, over to you.
Thank you very much, Rukaiya. I'm just going to share my screen. Thank you very much. Thanks, Rukaiya, for having me, and thank you for introducing me. Yes, my name's Sarah, and I work for the admissions team at the University of Cambridge, and my role is to support schools and students who might have questions about Cambridge or applying to Cambridge or other competitive universities in the UK. I'm just going to... So why consider Cambridge or another competitive UK university? We have been teaching students for over 800 years. We're one of the oldest universities in the world with a world-class education, top 5 in the world, top 10 in the world for over 40 of our subject choices. But apart from being a top class education, we are a global university. We have over 95 different countries represented through our undergraduate students. And last year, about 25% of our undergraduate students were international. So it really gives you a truly international feel
Yeah.
at the university.
Yes.
One of the things that are quite different about Cambridge compared to many other competitive UK and global universities is the style of teaching at Cambridge. And that's something when students are choosing their university that they might wish to consider.
Mhm.
In the UK, as your students probably know, rather than choosing a university and declaring a major, a student will choose the subject they want to study and then pick the university course that best
Accordingly.
fits
Yes.
that need. At Cambridge, there are a broad range, we call them papers, but modules within each subject area. So if you're studying engineering, for example, in the first year, you will study a broad range of engineering subjects, mechanical, electrical, mathematics, because these form the basis of all forms of engineering. And then as you go through into years 2 and 3, whatever subject you're in, you can begin to pick the modules that are of particular interest for you so that you can really specialize your learning. We also teach, much like many other universities around the world, through lectures, seminars, practicals, but through what we call a supervision system.
Mhm.
This is very small group teaching. It's one-on-one or two-on-one, and it's unassessed time, but it starts right from day 1, term 1, where you might have to prepare something to take to a supervision and discuss it with somebody that might have written your school textbook on the subject, be a world expert in their field. And it really allows our students to get in-depth knowledge about their work, things that perhaps you wouldn't do at other universities till maybe a master's point of view. And it's really a style of learning that is very unique to Cambridge. And again, something that students might want to consider when they're considering their own styles of learning and what style best suits them. There are plenty of academic opportunities. at Cambridge and at many other competitive UK universities, things like research, internship opportunities, supported academic trips or field works, lots of different project and group work opportunities. And one of the things that one of our students said recently is you get to meet interesting people that are working in industry, research, government. They're all there available to teach our current students. We are also a collegiate university, and I do get lots of questions about the college structure at Cambridge. So I just wanted to sort of clarify this as we're discussing Cambridge. People say, I've heard of the University of Cambridge, but I've also heard of the different colleges. The easiest way to think of this is the university is where you study. I don't know how many of your students or people listening into this might be Harry Potter fans. But sometimes the easiest way to think of it is the university is Hogwarts. It's where you go to learn the departments. It's where you and all your friends will study, where you do your practicals, where you get your degree from. The colleges are where you live and belong during your time at Cambridge. They are there to give you academic support. So some of these supervisions might take place in them, but they also provide accommodation, the place to eat, the place to live, social opportunities, and really support you pastorally and academically during your time at the university. We are an academically selective university. You make your application through UCAS like you do for most other UK universities. And we are looking for students with the top grades. So typically students who are studying for A levels, we would be looking for things like A star, A star A, or A star AA as a minimum academic requirement. And for some courses, there may be pre-required subject requirements. So, for instance, for something like engineering, you would need maths and physics at the highest level. If you're interested more in social sciences, perhaps law, there are no specific requirements, but we would expect to see an interest in the subject that you wish to study. And that really leads us on to what makes a strong application beyond the grades. We're looking for those students that have a serious academic interest in the subject, the ability to think independently, critically, who want to go beyond the subject at school and to find out new ways to push the boundaries of learning in this subject. And one of the best ways to do this is through the personal statement, which is part of that UCAS application. It is 3 questions next year. It will be divided up into 3 questions. And really, these questions are a guide to help you explain why you want to study the course, what you've done to find out about the course, and things you've done outside of your school curriculum to demonstrate your interest and your curiosity in that course. Much of this personal statement should be academic. We call this supercurricular activity. And I know that students at Heuser are very encouraged to do their own research projects, to read outside of their school curriculum. And that's what we want to see, what you've done outside of your school curriculum to explore your subject, demonstrate your interest in that subject. With any extracurricular things like sports, musical instruments, we look less upon those. We really encourage students to do them. It's great for mental health and to give you something to do, make friends. But with those extracurriculars, if you're going to include them in your personal statement, we're looking at those transferable skills. So perhaps less that you played in a football team, but really what that teamwork taught you, how you can relate that to your, did it teach you team management skills, which might be important in project management? Did playing a musical instrument help you with your timekeeping skills because you've had to balance your practice of the musical instrument with your school studies? So these transferable skills that we're looking at. There are lots and lots of supercurricular ideas available, and I'm sure we'll probably have a discussion in this in our question and answer session. But just to remind students that they don't have to be expensive. You don't have to do expensive summer schools or expensive courses. They can be, they don't have to be time consuming. It could be additional reading that you're doing in the library. It could be current events, particularly if you're interested in politics or social sciences. There's lots of things going on that you can look at through current events. It could be that you've done an EPQ or a personal research project into an area that you find interesting. You could have listened to TED Talks or gone to an exhibition. So all of these things, you know, can be, it's what's interesting to you
Mhm.
and what makes your research personal to you.
That's amazing.
There are some admissions tests
Okay.
for Cambridge. Um, so again, for students who are interested in Cambridge and specific courses that may have admissions tests, so things like economics, computer science, most of our STEM courses, law or medicine, there are additional admissions tests to be taken. These are usually taken in the October of your final year at school, and you usually have to pre-register in advance for these tests, often in the August or September.
This
So
applies,
again,
sorry, this applies for international students as well?
it does.
Okay.
So all the admissions tests are taken in country. So you would take them in Pakistan at an admissions test centre.
Okay.
And it's just to be aware of those students. So if you are interested in some of these courses that require these pre-registration admissions tests, again, do work with your counsellors, do work with your teachers, do make sure that they are aware so that they can help support you and make sure you're registered for the correct test on the correct day and that you're helping, that you're preparing for this.
Mhm.
There are practice questions online on our website.
Mhm.
Do look at those and make sure that you are registered for those tests in advance.
Okay. Perfect.
And we do interview. Um, as I said, Cambridge is an academically selective university. Many of the students who apply to us do meet those academic requirements, and we're always oversubscribed. So the interview process allows us to find out a little bit more about you as a student and for you to find out a little bit more about us as a university. Interviews for international students are usually online, but they are done by your college, so that college rather than the university. Again, some colleges will interview in person. So if you want an online interview, it may be best to look at the colleges that offer online interviews in order to apply to them rather than the colleges that may require you to travel to the UK for an interview. So for international students, that's just a little hint or tip about, if you don't wish to travel to the UK in December for an interview, to pick one of the colleges that hosts interviews online.
Okay.
Our interviews are subject specific.
Hmm.
So you will be asked questions, about your subject. So if it's, for instance, again, I use the example of engineering, you will be asked maths questions, you will be asked physics questions. If it's something more along the lines of law or social sciences, you might be asked to read something before you go in and then to comment on it.
Hmm.
What we're not looking for is the right answers.
Hmm.
What we're looking for is how you think. These are discussion-based interviews. They're designed to mimic those supervisions that I talked about earlier. And one of the best ways to prepare is to practice talking about your subject. So try explaining to a maths teacher how you would do a maths problem, or try talking to somebody about an area of economics or history that you really enjoy, so that you're very well practiced in talking about your subject out loud. But there is plenty of information online. I've talked very briefly about Cambridge so that we can have a conversation, but please do use some of our events and resources. We have a student newsletter, we have a virtual tour where you can look around the university. You can actually talk to current university students through Unibuddy. So international students who've been where you are a few years ago, ask them how they prepared for their interview or what they do in a typical day or how they chose the college that they wanted to live in. They're there and they're happy to discuss with students. So I'll leave that there for you. And thank you very much for listening. But obviously, Rukaiya, we have lots of questions I'm sure that students might want to.
Yeah, like, be interested in. Thank you so much. I mean, this presentation was really helpful as well. But obviously, I would like to ask a few questions that are more relevant to the South Asian region, right? Because every
Of
region
course.
is different and, their needs are different. So you did mention that, you're looking for really strong grades, especially, when a student is applying, and you mentioned A's and A stars. But like besides the academic profiling, you had mentioned 20% ECA. So what, in your opinion, makes a really strong applicant from the South Asian region?
What we're looking for in all applicants, not just applicants from the South Asian region, we don't have quotas. So we are simply looking for the best students for that course, regardless of where you come from. If you are the best student for that course, we want you. What we're looking for is those students that have a passion and a curiosity about their subject. So if you are in year 11 now and thinking that you might be interested in computer science or engineering or law, if you're in year 12, start to read up about it, start to think about the areas that you might be interested in. What we're not necessarily looking for is a student that's read through 100 books and puts that on their list in their personal statement. I've read this book, I've read this, I've read this. What we're more interested in is a student's journey.
Mhm.
So perhaps, I first got interested in computer science because of something I did at school or that a teacher said. I was particularly interested in this area. So over the summer, I took a MOOC and then I taught myself to code. I
Mhm.
then used that coding to build a website or an app. So
Mhm.
we're looking for your journey. If you've done a personal research project or had a paper published, I'm not so interested in whether you've had it published or done a personal research project. What we're interested in is why you decided to do that,
Mhm.
how you undertook your research, what you found interesting, what you found challenging, what that taught you, what you wanted to find out more about. So it's that curiosity that we're looking for.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much for answering that. And another question that I may that students might be interested in is that when students choose subjects at A level, what is the right combination if they are applying for competitive majors like engineering, law, or medicine at Cambridge University?
So again, the best advice that I can give is not necessarily just for Cambridge, but for any competitive UK university. Because as I mentioned before, in the UK, you choose your course rather than your university. So if you're considering perhaps the States as well or some other global universities, you pick a university and then may choose your major further down the line. In the UK, you pick your major. So going online, looking on sites like the UCAS website, thinking about the universities you might be interested in. And students are doing exactly the right thing now by listening to podcasts about different universities, researching different universities that they might be interested in. On each of those university websites, the courses and the grades required for each course are there. So for instance, at Cambridge, and many other UK universities, if you're looking at engineering, then maths and physics will be key. If your school offers further maths and you have the ability to do it, that would also help to make your application stronger. For some courses, things like economics, that can be quite interesting because it depends on the kind of course. And this is why going beyond the course title can be really important because economics at Cambridge is a very mathematical based economics.
Okay.
It's very fintech heavy, very algorithmic heavy. And so we actually require maths
Mm.
to come to Cambridge. But there are lots of other UK universities offering economics where it's a much more political economics and they don't require maths. So again, it's finding out the areas of interest. If you're interested in English literature, for example, if you're interested in Shakespeare or Chaucer, look on the Cambridge website. We teach that in our course.
Mm.
This is the place to be. But if you're perhaps more interested in post-World War feminist literature, that's not a subject we teach on our course, but other really good universities do. So you might choose to be studying there. So it's really about finding the course that fits you, and then every course will tell you what grade requirements there are and what subject requirements there are.
Miss Sara, my next question is, are there any common mistakes students from this region make when they apply to Cambridge? Would you like to shed light on any of those?
I think some of the things are being unprepared.
Okay.
Um, there are ways that you can prepare and make your application as strong as possible. So, for instance, things like the assessment tests,
Mm.
because you have to pre-register
Yeah.
for those assessment tests and take them in the October of your final year of high school. Sometimes that, you know, students may not realize that. So
Mm.
again, starting your research early, knowing that you have to sit those assessment tests and
Exactly.
when you have to sit them, studying for them in the same way as you would do for any other test that you might do. And there's plenty of practice materials online. And similarly for the interview, you know, there are plenty of examples of the interviews online that you can look at and preparing for those. The one other piece of advice I would say is that students will submit their application for Cambridge. It needs to be in by the 15th of October of your final year. So that's almost a full year in advance.
Mm.
That personal statement, preparing for that personal statement beforehand. Because if you want to write about the books you've read, the research you've done, if you come to do that in September, you don't have time.
Mm.
So preparing a few months in advance to make sure that you've got that information ready to go is a great way to make sure that your application is going to be as successful as you deserve.
Makes sense. Thank you so much for answering that. And another question that a lot of students would be interested in is, are there any financial aid or scholarship opportunities specifically for international students from the South Asian region or any other region for that matter?
There are a few, but
Okay.
I will be honest, there are not as many as we would all like. So all of our bursaries would be really fairly small. They wouldn't necessarily cover full fees and living expenses. There might be small bursaries to aid with settling in or travel. These are all needs based. So we don't have academic or sports scholarships. All of our bursaries would be needs based.
Okay.
And again, students don't need to apply for these in advance. If you are made an offer by a college, you would be advised whether you qualified either for or to apply for a bursary at that stage. So there's actually nothing that a student needs to do. The other thing I would say is we know that international education can be expensive for
Well,
students, and we know that there are some philanthropic organisations, government organisations in Pakistan that can also help support South Asian students. So to also look at all external sources of funding and support as well.
perfect. And can you share like the success story of a student from this region who made it to Cambridge and what really stood out for their journey?
Absolutely. I know of one current student who is we obviously don't share student details
Okay.
for
No, of
privacy
course, you don't have to
reasons.
share the name. Yeah.
Um, but they are actually a unibuddy if you want to get in touch with them. They are of Pakistani heritage and they joined us, this is now 4 years ago. They are no, 5 or 6 years. They are now in their final year of medicine within the UK. So medicine is one of the only courses where we do have a limit on international students because that's a government mandated limit. We have only 22 spaces for international students globally. This student really succeeded because of their passion and their commitment to their interest in medicine and joined us, as I said, 6 years ago and is now well on their way to becoming a really successful medic within the UK. But there are many, many examples of students from across the South Asian diaspora that have really succeeded. We have some really active South Asian societies. We have over 500 clubs and societies, and are now both our Pakistani and our Islamic societies are really active. And students are really enjoying their time at Cambridge, getting involved in everything Cambridge has to offer, and then going on to succeed nationally, internationally, in whatever their chosen career has been.
Great. So I know, I mean, we've been talking for half an hour, but like I just have one or two questions left, if
Of
that's okay.
course.
Sure. Okay, so how does Cambridge balance tradition with the needs of a modern and, global student body? If you would like to shed some light on that topic.
Absolutely. I mean, as I said at the beginning, we have been teaching students for over 800 years. So I always say we like to think we've worked out how to do it now. Um, But we know that the student body is changing. The world is global. And as I said, we welcome students from around the globe, not just because of the benefits it has for international students, but actually international students with their great international perspectives benefit our students as well. So we want our students to get the benefit of international students coming in and sharing their wealth of knowledge too. Obviously, the facilities that we have are upgraded and we have access to the best facilities because we are a research focused university, because we get so many research focused grants. We are able to keep up to date with some of the most modern facilities that enable students to go on. We have in our 800-year history 121 Nobel Prizes, but 20 of those were in the last 10 years, and in fact one of those last year itself. So again, keeping up with modern activities, the ability, for students to participate in the Dyson Engineering Building, which is the best researched engineering building in the country, our developing West Cambridge site, which is developing the physics laboratory, our biomedical campus that was built in conjunction with AstraZeneca, allowing students to get involved in some of the latest research facilities, as well as the traditions and support that Cambridge has offered for over 800 years.
That's amazing. And before we wrap this up, I would like you to walk us through the application timeline just one more time from submitting the UCAS form to receiving an offer, if that's okay.
Absolutely. I'll start just a little before that, if you like. So sort of in your first year of A levels, that's the time to really be exploring your subject, thinking about the subject you're interested in. So the application, your UCAS application, all applications to Cambridge must come in on the UCAS form. This must be submitted by October the 15th of your final year. So by that time, you will have needed to have created your personal statement and submitted that. Now, of course, if you're looking for one of the subjects that has the admissions assessment, then you should have already pre-registered for that. And many of those admissions assessments also take place around the October period or before. We then interview, and interviews happen usually in the first 2 or 3 weeks of December.
Okay.
As I said, for many international students, this will be an online interview through your college and is subject specific. We then contact all students, whether they've been successful or unsuccessful, towards the end of January.
Okay.
So you won't hear anything from your application and interview until the end of January, at which point, if you haven't already taken your final exams, and most A-level students are taking those in the May or June, we make what's known as conditional offers.
Okay.
This offer is conditional on you obtaining these grades in your A-levels. You take your A-levels in June, You get your results in August, which we hope are successful. If you have met the conditions, then you are in. We make our offer unconditional at that point, and we provide you with all the details you need to then confirm your visa and join us in the October.
That was a good summary, for students who want to understand the cycle and how it works. So that's about it from my end. Is there any last piece of advice that you would like to, give to students who are applying in the next 1 or 2 years?
I think the best advice I can give is to research, do your research, find out about the course. Wherever you go and whatever you study, you're going to be doing it at a really high level for at least 3 years. We want you to enjoy the subject and the place where you study it. I think somebody put it really well at the CIS conference that we were at recently. It's not just about getting in, it's about getting on. And
Yes.
we want you to enjoy the course and succeed on the course,
Not just
whether
go
you
by
end
the
up at
name.
Cambridge.
Yeah, that was that question that the moderator had asked, that it's not just about the name, it's also about what you're going to be doing there. So, and something that you would like to tell our O-level students, because, now profile building starts much earlier in grade 9, 10, and 11. And even the O-level grades are very important as well as your A-level grades. So any advice for the younger students as to what they can do in grade 10 and 11 so that they can start building their profile for Cambridge?
I think the best advice for younger students, whatever the age is read, explore subjects that you might be interested in. You
Okay.
know, you might not study law at GCSE, but you
Mm,
might think, oh, I'm interested in that.
mm,
Read a book, see if you're interested, talk to a lawyer,
mm.
begin to think about things that you might be interested in. But also, it's okay if you don't quite know at that age too. There's plenty of ways to explore.
Yes, because there are some students I also know who really want to take law at IGCSEs, but it's not a subject. It comes in at A levels and then at undergrad, but there's so many more ways to explore the subject. Um,
Absolutely, absolutely. Exploring, reading, finding out about subjects is always going to be beneficial, whether you want to come to Cambridge or anywhere else in the world. Um, it's going to help you to make those decisions about your future.
Definitely. Sure.